Welcome everybody to the Reign of Jafar meta report. We have got 4 or 5 tournaments that happened on the first weekend, including Southside Gaming, which had an 89 player tournament. We're going to be looking at the top 16 of Southside Gaming to begin with. We're then going to be looking at the top 4 of some of the other Reign of Jafar tournaments. A big shout out to Card Market, who sponsored today's video. At the end of the video, we're going to do a bit of a market watch using Card Market's best sellers feature, and that's going to be really interesting to see what people are buying and what kind of cards people are most interested in. So let's start looking at Southside Gaming. Before we begin, let's bear in mind this is literally the first weekend. So many players might have had some opportunities to do some testing before the set came out with proxies and things like that. But there's also, for your average player, a very big chance that they're playing these decks for the very first time, and an even bigger chance, or maybe a similar chance, that these players don't necessarily have every single card they want. Of course, at a tournament like this, proxies will not be allowed, and therefore you might be opening packs on the Friday, trying to get everything you need for Saturday, and you might just not do it. Like, I opened 6 boxes, and I only have 3 copies of the Rare Lady, so I would be in trouble in that case. So bear all that in mind. It's very early days, but it's going to be fascinating to see what kind of decks people are using, where the meta is settling. So Jonathan Williams in the top 16 is playing Ruby and Sapphire with items. Obviously, these item decks focus around Maurice's workshop. Whenever you play another item, you may pay 1 ink to draw a card. And Scrooge McDuck is one of the biggest powerhouse cards in this deck, as well as Belle. Usually a big weakness of Ruby Sapphire is that you really struggle against aggro decks, and it definitely seems like we've got a pretty aggro heavy format coming through. And traditionally the item decks were quite bad actually at dealing with those aggro decks, but now with Belle and with the potential of playing a Scrooge McDuck down for free, you can get big bodies on the board very early on. Also against a deck like Ruby Amethyst, which is obviously very popular, any decks which don't play item removal, Ruby Sapphire items can take big advantage of. It is worth noting that there's 2 new Emerald cards similar to Benja. There's an Archimedes and a Fred with very, very similar stats to Benja from Steel, but this early on in the metagame, you're not going to be expecting people to play those cards because they're tech cards. And I think that Ruby Sapphire items is really well positioned. Of course, you could go down the Maui Half Shark route as well, but great to see Ruby Sapphire items performing well. Also in the top 16, we've got an Amber and Emerald deck, but not the Churnadogs list. This one is a discard deck, and it has got 1 new card in here, which is the new Chip Quick Thinker, which is a card I'm a huge fan of. However, I would say that this Chip card has the lowest impact in Amber Emerald out of any of the Emerald discard decks, and the reason is there's already a very similar card to this in Amber, which is a 4-cost Daisy with a 2/3 stat line and the same ability. So Chip not making a big difference to this deck at all, but I do like to see the Tramp card in here because this is very interesting way of singing Under the Sea more easily, and Amber Emerald discard continues to be a very, very strong deck. Even if it didn't get many new things for many sets, it's still really good. We've got a Amethyst Sapphire, a Blurple deck, the first Blurple deck. And of course, the new card here is Into the Unknown, a dual ink card. It's also got a beautiful enchanted. You can put chosen exerted character into their player's inkwell, face down and exerted. This gives you a really good removal tool, which can be used in a high tempo way. Singing songs obviously means that you're not spending ink, so being able to have essentially a Hades effect while spending no ink is really powerful, particularly in a deck which plays Belle, because Belle obviously being 3 cost is great at singing 3 cost songs. You can of course use this on your own cards. Using it on your own Tipo is probably the most obvious line that you would do. If you use it on your own Diablo, the Diablo would not be banished and you would not draw from it, but using it on your own Tipo sounds very reasonable, but of course mainly going to be used as a way of controlling the board, gaining a lot of tempo and applying a lot of pressure. Of course, this deck's looking to play Sail or Tipo on turn 2. If I was to build it, I would still be tempted to try and fit in Churnabogs and Magic Brooms, but instead of playing those, Mr. Zul here has gone instead for lots of top end things like Hades and Elsa, Rabbit, and Merlin. Very similar to the list we were seeing last season, do very well, and I think that Blurple will continue to do well. Also want to give a mention to Amber Amethyst with the new Huey card, and with Lantern you can build a very similar deck with Amber and Amethyst, which can ramp on 2 as well. That's the deck I was playing on stream yesterday. Another Blurple deck. I woke up and I'm winning by my... This one is looking pretty similar, but definitely some differences. Monstro is in the mix. This is a really fascinating new card. It has Rush, and you can choose and discard a card and ready this character. It can't quest for the rest of this turn. So you can rush in with Monstro, discard a card, and do more challenges. And also, once Monstro has been on the board for more than one turn, you can start singing songs. So, for example, you rush in with Monstro, then the next turn it readies. You could quest, discard a card, sing Friends with Monstro, drawing 2, discard one of those cards, and then you've just gained 1 card for free, essentially, right? Because Friends drew you 2 cards, Monstro discarded a card. It's pretty cool. And then you can keep challenging, keep doing all sorts of stuff. Obviously, it's going to be quite difficult to play Monstro in most decks, but when you've got ramp like Sapphire, Monstro makes a lot of sense. Also in Amber Amethyst, that other deck, I think a couple copies of Monstros could be good. There's a Tamatoa in here for some Porpsicle recycling. Other than that, it's quite similar. Peter Pan Shadow Finder's in the mix, which is obviously going to be quite good into Diablo. 4 Genies, which I think is making quite a lot of sense. When you can play Genie on 3, Elsa on 4, you're going to be winning those Genie battles. Also 1 copy of Finders Keepers and McDuck Manor. Want to give a mention to Queen's Castle. I think Queen's Castle has huge potential in these decks, particularly with Into the Unknown. I think I might try some Blurple myself very, very soon, and I will try Queen's Castle over McDuck Manor. Up next, we've got Emerald Amethyst. This one is not using Diablo. You can obviously build this with Diablo. Without Diablo, you can go discard or no discard. And this one's just like a good old-fashioned no Diablo, no discard, mid-range Amethyst and Emerald deck, and it's good to see it performing so well. The new card in this one is just the Magicka Dispel, which is really a Madam Mim. I'm kind of surprised they didn't give this to a Madam Mim card, actually, because it's when you play this character, you may return another chosen character of yours to your hand to draw a card. So it's actually a little bit different, right, than a Madam Mim, I suppose. So maybe that's why. But it works in a very similar way, with the upside of you also drawing a card. But it is a 3/3 evasive that quests for 2, and you can play it on an empty board. It's a really good card, honestly. It's a pretty interesting one. Same stat line as a Pegasus. It is uninkable, but I like the card a lot. Obviously good with crabs, good with goats. Cool to see this deck do so well. Up next, we've got Emerald Steel. And this one, in terms of new cards, is using Beyond the Horizon, as well as 1 copy of Chip. These Emerald Steel deck lists get so tight, and it's difficult to fit new things in, but Beyond the Horizon has been talked up a lot before the release of the set about its power potential in this deck, because Ursula, Deceiver of All, can sing this twice with her. Because obviously if you sing it with Ursula and sing it with, let's say, the Muses, that's going to be Sing Together 7, and Ursula will still trigger. If you've got a Prince John down on the board, that's going to mean you can make your opponent draw 3 cards and then discard those same 3 cards, meaning your Prince John could draw you an absolute ton of cards. It's also a good way of refilling your hand if your hand is empty. It is uninkable, so it does come at a big risk, but it's also a song, so it triggers the Muses. It's a really, really fascinating card, that's for sure, particularly in this deck. Space Pirate, very solid card as well. No sign of the new Namiri. Just going with the 1/1 drop in the form of Diablo, but also that Hidden Cove. This deck's going to be really, really good when it high rolls, but it's going to have games where you just really fall apart when you don't hit that Diablo shift in the early game. It can all go quite wrong quite quickly. But I think Emerald Steel's in a really good position. We've got Alex up next, who is playing an Amber Steel aggro deck. This is also another deck I'm really fascinated to try. Only 1 Rapunzel, which is interesting to note. Maybe that's by choice, maybe that's by budget. But if you're someone that wants to play Amber without Rapunzel, perhaps this could be an option. I would wager that 4 Rapunzels is still probably optimal. But Amber got one of the best new cards in the game. I think Amber Emerald got a lot of really good cards, but Amber, this lady, is extraordinary, because if you've got strong 2 power cards, 2 strength, two cost cards, I should say, then Lady is amazing. And obviously in this deck, you've got Piglet, Penny, Smee, Doc, Calhoun, as well as all your 1-drops, which are also all quite good in their own right, except probably Rhino, but we'll talk more about Rhino in a minute. Being able to go Lady into Doc is absurd. And it's also really nice to be able to go like Lady into Calhoun, because you don't necessarily want to play Calhoun on turn 2 because it only quests for 1. But a Calhoun on turn 2, when you're also dropping a Lady down on the board, is insane. And obviously Lady has a lot of synergy with Doc, because you're going to be able to refill your hand. Even if you end up with like 2 Docs in hand, right? Being able to go Lady plus Doc, no trigger, and then Doc the next turn makes that double Doc feel significantly less punishing. So Lady is an outstanding card in this deck, and it's definitely a deck which is heavily on my radar as well. Obviously sticking with Cindy with the 2 songs, and Rhino as a fascinating new card. It's a 4 cost with shift 2. While this character has no damage, he gains resist 2. So you can play the Rhino on 1 and then the shift Rhino on 2. Very, very cool. The Rhino 1 is pretty bad. I think when you play this character, chosen opposing character gets -1 until the start of your next turn. But it's really there as a shift target. And in a Doc deck where you're just trying to dump your hand and then refill it, just playing a Rhino down and then using Doc and then being able to shift in a 4/3 with resist 2 the next turn could be outstanding. I would imagine you want to play 4 Rapunzels. So my gut feeling would be maybe reducing like the Penny down. I don't know how much I love Penny. Maybe reduce the Penny down. The Mulan's an interesting option in at 1 as well. I really like the way this one's built. I would just want to add in 3 more Rapunzels, because Rapunzel's inkable. I feel like she's always worth playing when you're playing Smees and Lawrence's. Like the Lawrence becomes a lot better when you have the Rapunzel, but this is a really nicely built list, and it's definitely one I'm interested in trying out myself. Up next into the top 8. Yeah, that was top 16, but we've got top 8. We've got Kylie, who I know we've covered on the channel before. And this is also on Emerald Steel. Very similar looking list, if not identical with that Beyond the Horizon to Hidden Coves as well. Huge shout out to Kylie for that top 8 finish. We've got Amber Steel from Aaron. This is looking similar with Doc. I like the addition of Lilo, actually, in that 2 cost slot, but not the Calhouns, instead preferring the Prince. And the Prince is also another one of these cards which suddenly, when you've got a Lady, just feels so much better to me. Being able to play the Prince down on turn 3 alongside Lady sounds absolutely absurd. I think these uninkable cards, in particular with Lady, feel really, really good, because you can't ink them, and then if you want to play like a Smee on turn 2, for example, they just end up stuck in your hand, and you're going to have to play them like for bad tempo later on. But suddenly Lady flips out on its head, because you can play them with insane tempo on turn 3. So the Prince is absolutely fascinating with Lady, and I like the choice of the Lilo in this 2 cost slot, particularly when you're playing Mulan and Doc. Also 2 copies of Rapunzel's Tower is really interesting. Rapunzel's in there ×4. It's a very, very exciting list. The return of Diggy Hole. Seven Dwarfs Mine could be an option as well, of course. I think this deck looks really good. I think Lady's so good. I really, really do. We've got Amber Emerald. This one's a Chernodog deck in the top 8. And it's a very fascinating list because it's got Just in Time. I actually saw this one already. And Just in Time was my favorite card in the very first set. Why on earth would you play Just in Time? Well, many of you that saw me playing Amber and Emerald the previous set, I really liked the idea of Doc in this deck because it allowed me to play a Cricky on turn 4. Well, with Just in Time, you can play Cricky on turn 3, and you actually never have to ink above 3. But it's interesting, there's no... Well, I called it a Chernodog deck, but there's actually no Chernobog at all, which is really, really fascinating. And there's also, therefore, no 7-cost Tramp. Really interesting take on the deck. I like the idea of it a lot. They're also not playing the 3-cost Lady, which is worth noting. Which is also interesting, and Sven's in there, which is, I always compare Sven a little bit to like a Madamim Snake in a sense, because you can use Sven on like a Merfolk and it becomes ready again, similar to how you could play a Snake on a Merfolk and then replay the Merfolk. So Sven operating in a similar way to like a Madamim Snake in a sense, in an aggro format. Goofy's in there with Ward, and it gives Ward when it quests. I love the idea of this one. Also, Pegasus Shift is in there to turn everything evasive. You've got Go-Go for the reach. You've got 4 copies of Lady, which you can just play for 3 on a just-in-time. I'm going to have to try this one. I like it a lot. The one thing I'm not sure about is the lack of the 3-cost Lady. Like, I think the 3-cost Lady is that good that even when you don't have an abundance of card draw, like this one is going to run out of cards very quickly because just in time is 2 cards from your hand at once, and that would be a concern for me. You're really relying on Rapunzel, and Lady does empty your hand quite quickly, but the thing is it's also inkable. The amount of tempo that you can get on a turn 3 Lady into Piglet is absurd. Because again, do you really want to play a Piglet on turn 2, or do you want to play 2 1-drops? But suddenly you can play Lady on 3 and Piglet, and then you still had triple 1-drop by turn 2. I like the Kit Cloud Kicker inclusion in this one as well. Similarly, like the Ursula 2, quite slow, but if you can play a Lady on 3 into Ursula on 2, it's insane tempo. I really like the idea of the just-in-time, and it's really creative to cut the Chernobog and the Tramp. It's going to be interesting to see if more people pick this one up and if they prefer it to the Chernobog variant. I think that this deck is going to be really strong in this meta game, however you build it, and it's fascinating to see a very creative take on it. So big shout out to Nathan for a cool list. Still in the top 8, we've got Justin, another Diggy Hole. This one is playing Lady, unsurprisingly, Calhoun, Rhino, no Lilos in this one. 4 Lawrence, 4 Pete, 4 Rapunzel. Also has 2 of the Rapunzel's towers and sticks with the Rhinos. So, yeah, Diggy Hole looking good. Into the top 4, we have Amethyst and Emerald. And it's actually a pull the lever, wrong lever there. That is insane. Okay, consider me intrigued because I was a little bit skeptical about how good these cards were going to be. But seeing this, I think I might have to try a pull the lever, wrong lever deck on my stream later on today. This might have just inspired me. I was already planning on playing Amethyst Emerald, but I didn't even have these cards on my radar. So pull the lever is choose one. It's an action. You either draw 3 cards or each opponent discards a card. And wrong lever is choose one, return chosen character to their player's hand, or put a card named pull the lever from your discard on the bottom of your deck to put chosen character on the bottom of their player's deck. So what you want to do is you want to have a pull the lever in the discard, which you can achieve in 2 ways. You either play it or you discard it with Diablo. So it's insane discarding pull the lever with Diablo, because then you play wrong lever for 3 and it's like a mother knows best, which instead of putting the card back in your opponent's hand, puts it on the bottom of their deck, which is insane, especially in a discard deck, which this has some discard tools. So pull the lever is like the perfect Diablo discard target, and obviously you've got up to 12 Diablos in this deck. There's actually the option of playing 16 shifts, because there's another one cost Diablo with a 2/1 stat line, which when you play a Maleficent, you look at the top 2, one stays on the top, one stays on the bottom. It's not a very good card, but you could, if you wanted to, have 16 Diablo. You can actually have 20, right? Because you can play Morph. So you can have 20 Diablo shift targets in this pairing if you so desire. That sounds a bit excessive, but pull the lever is like the perfect Diablo discard target, and then wrong lever is there as well. It's really, really fascinating. This one's quite light on the discard. It doesn't play Sudden Chill. It doesn't play Hypnotize, but obviously pull the lever is also a discard card, similar to Hypnotize. Oh my goodness. I am 100% trying this later on. Obviously, there's like some other pull the lever, wrong lever synergy with Yzma, but I don't think she's good enough. She costs like 7. The rest of the deck, it has the Ursula 2 still. It has only 2 foxes. I don't really understand people's... Like, I'm seeing this a lot in these Amethyst Emerald decks. It's not just unique to Tiago's list here, but lots of people on like 2 foxes. I don't think that could ever, in my opinion, be optimal, but that is coming from someone that's not played Emerald Amethyst discard since set 3. 2 Prince Johns, I would want to play 3 at least. Maybe 4 is too many, because you're going to end up with too many in hand. Peter Pan Shadowfinder's in there, Crab's in there, Genie, Iago, Cricky, Elsa. Very cool list. I'm going to be playing this on my stream later on today, 100%. I'll tweak it a little bit. I'll play Chernobogs and Magic Brooms probably, but the pull the lever, wrong lever, like you cut Hypnotize. I think Chip's really good still as well, like the new 4 cost we were looking at earlier. But that is super cool to see Pull the Lever, Wrong Lever actually looking quite good. Emerald Steel in 3rd place. This one is playing the Chip card we were just talking about. It has Beyond the Horizon as well. There's 2 Hypnotize, 1 Cricky. Very, very cool. 1 Hidden Cove in there just for good measure as well. But into the top 2 we go. And it's Dylan on Ruby Amethyst, the first Ruby Amethyst. And that is a list and a half. Oh my goodness. So it's a Peter Pan Shadow Finder Maui Half Shark build. So your Peter Pan is going to turn your Half Shark into a Rush card, which is insane. And you've got some wide variety of options in terms of actions. With Brawl, everybody got a weakness, Dragonfire, Finders, Keepers, Friends, and Pirate's Life and B Prep to have many options off your Half Shark. Everybody's got a weakness is a new 4-cost action, which is very expensive. Move 1 damage counter from each damage character you have in play to chosen opposing character. Draw a card for each damage counter moved this way. Could be good. You've also got 1 monster in there. I like the idea of having 2 Pirate's Life. Only 3 B Prep feels a little bit risky. I would imagine I would probably just want to stick to 4 in a Ruby Amethyst deck. I like the libraries. There's 1 Tremaine in there, 2 Maui, 2 Elsa, Rabbit, and 1 Genie, 3 Snakes, no Goats. Very, very cool list. But the winning deck was Emerald Steel from Mark Miller. And it's a pretty different build. There is 2 copies of Beyond the Horizon, 2 Coves, only 3 Storms, which I feel like I would want the 4th. I find that my Platinum is in the deck. It's a card I don't like at all. Never have, never will. It'll be interesting to hear if it performed well. Definitely could be some big surprise value. 1 Grab Your Sword is fascinating, and I absolutely love that idea in this aggro heavy meta with Chernodogs. Just a surprise Grab Your Sword is very, very spicy, but you don't have that many ways of shifting it in and singing it early. But you could shift in Beast on 3 onto Morph, sing Grab Your Sword. That could be really good against the Chernodogs deck, although a lot of those 1 drops like the Lady, like maybe the Little John and the Nala have 4 willpower. Interesting to see nonetheless. Emerald Steel takes down the first big tournament of the set. It was a release weekend tournament. It's early days, but you can see that Diablo is very well positioned. And Diablo is always best in a format which doesn't expect it and doesn't respect it that much. So maybe Diablo might start to struggle a little bit more as the set goes on and people start putting those Peter Pan Shadow Finders back in their decks and all that sort of stuff. It's not necessarily a card that you're going to be thinking about teching for that much on your first weekend, but if Emerald Steel proves to be really good and dominates, and also the Emerald Amethyst Diablo decks, the longer the set goes on, the more people start teching for the Diablo decks, the worse the Diablo decks become, and interestingly, the more people start teching for the Diablo decks, the better Ruby Sapphire becomes, because it's very difficult to tech for both of those matchups simultaneously, right? A card like Peter Pan Shadow Finder is great against Diablo, but that uninkable 3 cost, which quests for 1, is pretty terrible against Ruby Sapphire. So it'll be interesting to see how things shift as the meta develops. Big shout out to Southside Gaming for hosting an awesome tournament and having all the deck lists available. Guys, I want to go over to Southside Gaming at some point soon. That sounds like a fun store. I would love to visit over in the States at some point. Moving on though, we do have a lot of other tournaments. We don't necessarily have full data for all of them. So I've compiled some of the most interesting decks from some of these other tournaments. So this one, we'll come back to that. This one, we're going to look at the top 4. It was a Dragon's Horde tournament with 33 players. So we do have the full top 4 from this one. And Chad comes in top 4 with what some people might know as a Kiwi Birds deck. So this is a Sapphire and Steel deck. Only 5 1-drops. Oh no, 4 Popsicles and Bell. Oh, yes! Let's go, Chad. Chad is in agreement with me that Bell is the way to go with these decks. Not playing Storm at all, interestingly. I can certainly see why you wouldn't want to play 4 copies of Storm in this deck with it being uninkable. But I feel like if you're playing Bell, I would want to play at least a few Storms personally. But really cool to see Bell. Like, this deck doesn't really have many good 1-drops outside of Mulan. So my argument in the meta report video I shared previously was like, well, just play Popsicle Bell and Strength. Happy days. 3 Dock, to Desperate Plan. I did actually misread Desperate Plan before the set came out. So it's if you have no cards in your hand, draw until you have 3. Otherwise, choose and discard any number of cards and draw that many. So there's definitely some anti-synergy between Desperate Plan and Dock, but having both as options means that you have more ways of refilling. Arthur is a fascinating new card as well. Skip your turns, draw step. High risk, high reward, because it's a 6/6 witch quest for 3. Chempo is a unit. Cogsworth is a big beefy guy, and then you've got Gantu and Baymax for your questing power. Also Alice for questing power. John Silver's like an anti-shark tech. When you play this character, chosen character can't challenge during their next turn. That's going to allow you to have a turn of questing up against a half shark and 4 McDuck manas. Very, very cool. I think Sapphire Steel could be pretty good this set, with Bell in particular. In third place, another Emerald Steel. This one's also on 2 Beyond the Horizon. It's on 2 Muses, which I don't think we necessarily saw in many of the other lists. This looks like a really clean setup, honestly. Trying to think what's missing exactly in order to fit all of this in. There's Morph, there's Beast, there's Bruno, there's Pete's. I can't actually work out exactly what's missing compared to some of the other lists. Let's have a look here. There's no Pluto. It looks very similar to all the other lists actually, but they've just managed to sort of squeeze everything in. I'm assuming it is 60 cards. Does it say up here? 36, 40. It is 60. This just looks really good. This looks very similar to how I would play it, actually. I just like seeing like 4 ofs. Maybe I would go down to 3 Ursula and try and squeeze in like an extra Cove. I quite like playing 3 Coves, maybe even an extra Muses, but really cool list. Looks very, very, very optimized to me. Lucas Arano in second place, and this is a familiar name, and they've got a whole new world. Amber Steel, the first of the video. Now, just because it's the first of the video doesn't mean like the Diggy Hole variants are just better now. It just means that that's what people are more excited and interested in trying out on release day. But Lucas sticking with Amber Steel, going for Miss Bianca. Also has Rhino in there as well. I'm not sure I like Rhino in this setup with a whole new world, simply because it's a 4 cost that can't sing a whole new world. And I'm not sure I'd rather play like a Queen or a Robin Hood in these slots to help me sing a whole new world more often. 4 Naveen's is a lot of Naveen's, and that's really interesting to see. 1 Bare Necessities for Whole New World. There's Ariel, there's Miss Bianca as your other ways. But that's what they're saying. Okay, I'm going to play Rhino, but I'm going to have more consistent Whole New World plays with Naveen and Bianca. Very, very cool list. Up next, in first place, Traverse Travern, and they are also playing a Whole New World, and it looks almost identical, actually. Is it identical? I think it is. Card for card the same, so I guess these guys prepped. It's not. 2 Bare Necessities, 1 Bare Necessities, 4 Lawrence, 3 Lawrence. So probably these guys prepped together and both made it to the final of the Dragon Hordes event. So that's a very cool looking list with Rhino and Prince Naveen, which I'm sure many of you guys will want to check out. So congratulations to both of those players who had a mirror matchup in the final, and Traverse Travern came out on top. Up next, we've got a 4th place deck from a 17-player event at Cardboard Castle Games. And this is Blake Wood, who's also playing Amethyst and Emerald, but they have got Flynn Rider in there. They don't have the pull the lever, wrong lever. They have Peter Pan. They have Cricky, going for the Diablo route as well. Quite a lot of discard in there with Prince John, Hypnotize, Sudden Chill. And also this Flynn Rider can be a discard tool. Whenever this character is challenged, the challenging player may choose and discard a card. If they don't, you gain 2 lore. Pretty cool card. We've also got 3rd place Amethyst Sapphire Jafar. Oh my goodness. So I saw some of these decks popping up a little bit last set. It's something that I had in my mind to try ages ago, like a Sapphire Jafar deck, and I've never actually played it. So it's definitely one I'm going to have to try out. You use the Lamp, you use Genie and Jafar. Monstro's in there. Finders, Keepers, Friends, Sail. Very, very cool deck. Keeper of Secrets is a card I always quite liked as well. 5 willpower, not easy to deal with at all. Tamatoa's in there as well. Croquet Mallet, banish this item, chosen character gains rush. That's not a card you see every day. That's for sure. But that is a very, very cool deck. Monstro's in there too. I'm going to have to try out some some Sapphire Jafar on. I'm sure you guys want a deck guide on that. Amber Steel in second place from Ruben. This is a Diggy Diggy Hole variant with Lady and with Doc, but this one's playing the new Goofy. At the end of your turn, you may remove up to 1 damage from each of your other characters. Ready, each character you removed damage from this way. And it's also playing 2 Darling Deers. When you play this character, chosen character gets +2 Law this turn. Kind of similar to a Goat as a closer. I like the Lilo. I don't like that there's no Calhoun. That would be the one thing that I would change. Mulan. I don't like that there's no Mulan. I also like Calhoun, but I think Mulan's really, really good. I like having a lot of 1-drops when playing Doc, but it looks like a solid build, that's for sure. And first place is Hurley, also on Amber and Steel. Diggy Diggy Hole, they do have the Mulan, which I promise I didn't know, but they've also got the Prince in there with Lady. That is a very cool combo. Looks like these decks are really good. I'm definitely going to be testing them out this week. The meta looks amazing, I have to say. I think Lady's really performing well. Diablo looks to be performing well also. And I'm sure there's going to be other decks coming out of the woodworks. It looks like it was a tough weekend overall for Ruby Sapphire. But again, maybe that's just because Ruby Sapphire didn't get that much new, and many players are just wanting to play new decks on the release weekend. And in first place, they see me roll. This is a different tournament, sorry. Yeah, this is a different tournament. This was a 23-player tournament. There wasn't that much data from it, but the first place deck was here at the Gaming Factory, J&J Gaming Factory. And this is another Diggy Diggy Hole. Diggy Diggy Hole's popping off with Doc, with Lady. No Mulan in this one, but they've also got the Rhino. They've got for Pluto, Wendy, Darling Deer, sorry, and the Prince is in there as well. So that is all the decks for this week. There's going to be lots more data. I'm playing at a big tournament this weekend in Norway, so look out for a live stream where I'm going to be competing. I don't know what deck I'm playing yet, but I'm going to try and go a bit more try-hard mode this set. Certainly for the first few weeks, I've got a few tournaments coming up. I've got 3 big tournaments coming up, and my ambition is to win all 3. I'm going to be going full try-hard mode to see and really test myself and try and move a little bit further away from being a content creator and caster. Since I'm not casting Worlds, let's try and compete and win some tournaments. I think that seems like a good focus for me to work on. But we have now got the market report from courtesy of the channel sponsor Card Market. It's the biggest marketplace in Europe for buying singles, so we can get some really interesting data on what cards people are liking. Lady, the top selling card. I only got 3 ladies out of 6 boxes. I'm absolutely fuming. Desperate Plans up there, Monstro, Beyond the Horizon. You've got the Chernodog kind of cards. Rhino's doing well. Ludwig, we didn't see any Amber Sapphire in this meta report, but it's definitely a huge card for that deck potentially. Into the Unknown and Wrong Lever down in New Orleans is up there. This could be good with the Shark. There's Jafar for Illusion decks. Mushu for Ruby Steel is up there. Arthur. This Prince John's quite fascinating. Whenever an opponent plays a character, deal 1 damage to this character. Captain Hook and Maui are up there. Stitch is up there. The Lilo's up there as well. Very, very cool to see all of this data. Namari's up there. So big shout out to the channel sponsor Card Market. And thank you all for watching. If you enjoyed the video, give it a like. And make sure you let me know in the description, or in the comments rather, what decks you want to see me covering with deck guides this week. I've got like 2 more days at home before traveling off again. I've got a very, very busy month. So if you guys want to see any specific decks, let me know in the comments, and see you soon. Cheers.